Hey guys, today we are going to be adjusting the valves on my Kymco Xciting RI ABS. And I have never done the valve adjustments on this bike, so it's going to be a learning process. Several people online have taken the engine and had to push it back in order to slide the top case of the engine out, and I am not looking forward to that. The intake is 0.1 millimeter and the exhaust is 0.1 millimeter, and in inches it translates to 0.004 inches, but it's kind of nice it's the same. And I don't think this bike has ever had the valves adjusted, so it's probably a good idea to do it. There's a little cover here and you use a flat screwdriver to get at it. Just going to unscrew it. If it's on tight, make sure you use a large screwdriver to pull it out. And here we go. These 10 millimeters, that holds this bracket here. This one, move these. Whoa, and there we go. On this left side, that bolt is what we want to access. This lets you turn the engine over, and you want to always go clockwise, never counterclockwise. You have this system, you move it, and then you go to the other side into that side port, and you look for top dead center. This is the case that we need to remove, but the problem is that it's very close to the steel bar. We're gonna have to remove all of this. The first thing we're gonna have to do is remove the spark plug. I've already removed the spark plug, so you can just use a socket, remove your spark plug, and remove the coil. So we want to just make the most amount of space so we can work. And I do want to remove the thermostat and move it backwards because I think that might be better, and I might be able to slide the engine case. This side of the engine we have this hose. We're going to remove that. And then sometimes the hose is very tight on there. Try and remove the coolant. Should be popping out pretty soon. Should be able to move this housing backwards. Coolant temperature, and I also suspect this could be one of the issues. But so you'll use 10 millimeter, and then another one here, and then 2 at the bottom. So without an extension you could reach these here, and then we can just push it back. From this right side you can actually just squeeze this here without the use of removing the thermostat for now. If you're a guy like me that works on his own bikes, it's kind of important to have a bike that's very easy to maintain and doesn't require a lot of work. Making this subframe brace, and either moved it front or moved it backwards, or even made it so you could remove a bolt here and move this out. Definitely make sure that you don't lose these 4 bolts. These are the ones on top of the engine. They're very specific. Alright, I'm going to try removing this bracket here. A bracket for the thermostat. This bracket. But the problem is, I don't know if I'm able to squeeze it past the thermostat. Bolt right here that attaches to the engine. We're going to loosen that. We're just going to squeeze on here. You might have to use a breaker bar, or I guess not. So there we go. You can see now it's loose. A 22 millimeter wrench you're going to get in here, and that's going to be one of the motor mounts. So this is the bolt that you have to loosen. It has to come up. Shit. Oh my god, I finally got it. Oh my, and it's still stuck. So this is the valve cover gasket. Man, what a terrible design. Now, if you look down here, this is where the valves are. And if I use the crank to rotate now, you should be able to see the lobes and the shims and all of that moving And the way you figure it out is by getting on that right side and looking for the T mark. This hole, that is what you're looking for. You're looking inside and you are looking for a T. It might be a little bit hard to see, but there is a, it's called a punch mark. There's a little hole in that hole on both sides, and it needs to be facing this way. This is the exhaust side, but you see that little tiny dot up here? It needs to be facing up. So if that dot is down here, you have to rotate the crankshaft again until it's to the top. The feeler, you know, there is a technique to valve adjustment. It basically all by feel. So the key is you stick one of these metal shims underneath and you should be able to kind of feel a slight drag. This one is the one we're going to be using, and it's kind of funny because the measurement is right here in inches and in millimeters. 1 millimeter or 0.004, and that's what you need for both of the intake and the exhaust. Different bikes, there is different sizes that you have to measure. This is the exhaust side, and the way you can tell is that there's two per side. One is the intake, one is the exhaust. And you see, it's very difficult to see it on camera, but there's a piece of metal, I guess the rocker arm, and what you measure is the measurement here. You put that shim here, and you should be able to slide it in with a drag. So that's why they call it a feeler gauge. All right, so I'm actually in the other one, and I'm dragging it. It's very difficult because it's just the position of it. If it's too tight or too loose, what you do is you undo this bolt, and then you use this to adjust it. Sometimes you can reach the valves using a Phillips screwdriver to adjust it, and then you tighten the nut. But you can't even get a regular socket in here. You require special tools to get it in there. So if Kymco decided to go with just a different style of this rocker arm and a different position of the rocker arm and not use the square nut to adjust the valve lash, it would make things a whole lot simpler. Alrighty guys, it is time to put back the cover. Make sure that gasket is not getting bunched up. Look at this gasket to make sure that it's not binding on the engine. And even look from the very bottom. There is a pattern that you should follow. Don't tighten a bolt too much. You want to kind of go around a little bit at a time. I'm just putting it in a little bit, and once it starts to squeeze in, I'm just going to take it out. Once it gets resistance, you can just move on to the other one. Now at this point, you just kind of go around and you tighten it. The valves were not tight. They were actually in spec, except one that was a little loose, but not too loose. Thing, I just find it so difficult to believe that Kymco thought that this was a great idea. Engine is in there, engine is nice and tight, and we got the valves adjusted. We're still waiting for parts, so I'm not going to be starting the bike yet, but we're getting near completion. That's how you do a valve adjustment on a 2009 Kymco 500 Ri. I was actually very surprised that this was this difficult to do, and now that I know this, and if you were to ask me if I would buy a Kymco, I would actually never buy a 500 just because of the maintenance is so much more difficult on it. And I would probably even steer away from other Kymcos. I'm very surprised that the engineering of this bike that's supposed to be a top of the line bike is this bad. And you can see that in the way it takes so much more time and effort to maintain this. And I think if I was to buy another scooter, it would have to be a smaller Kymco. But I think this experience of adjusting the valves on this steers me away from Kymco in general. This one has got a few more problems that shouldn't be problems, and I've never encountered this amount of problems in a scooter. Even a beat-up scooter like a Honda from the 80s doesn't have as many problems as this. Even the engineering, like just the way the handbrake feels, the way the twisting motion happens, it just doesn't seem like they thought very well about the engineering behind this bike. The filler cap for the gas tank, it's extremely over-engineered. They made it for convenience, but it actually makes it a lot worse to fill, having it up top, and it just creates one more hose that they need to get to the tank. These are the type of things that I look for in motorcycles, and yeah, I can't say I recommend this bike. It's I'm probably gonna fix it up and I'm gonna sell it. I'm not interested in riding it, knowing of the things that I know about it now. You know, I hope I fixed the heating issue on it, but if not, I think I'm gonna have to sell it for as is or for parts or something. But it's just incredibly difficult and time consuming to maintain. And I kind of knew about the maxi scooter thing, you know, with the plastic, but I was not expecting this to be as time consuming to maintain. But I hope you guys learned something. I know I did, so hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.